Welcome to Less Than 12 Parsecs, the fastest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. Now here's your host, Tim McMahon.
What's wrong?
Leia, do you remember your mother? Your real mother?
Just a little bit. She died when I was very young.
Hey everybody, it's Tim, and I am back. Yeah, I apologize. I haven't had a new episode of Less Than 12 Parsecs in about 3 weeks. Now, if you've been paying attention to Less Than 12 Parsecs, you know it's rare for me to go 3 days without an episode. But yeah, I just sort of had to drop off the grid. Sadly, not for good reasons. I don't know if you saw my tweet or my post on Facebook, but about 3 weeks ago, my mom passed away. And yeah, I've been dealing with that. Folks have been saying, oh man, you must be sad, you must be, grieving, you must be bummed out. Yeah, and that's true, but I've been so darn busy. I didn't realize that when a parent or a family member passes away, how busy you are. The grieving will come later. And I thought I knew what busy was. You guys know I do Less Than 12 Parsecs because I have such a busy work schedule. Well, that's nothing compared to how busy I've been the last 3 weeks. Now, to make things more complicated, I live here in New England. I'm in the state of Maine. My mom had retired or semi-retired and moved south to Tennessee about 9 years ago. So I was doing all of this long distance. Then I had to fly south and deal with everything. And man, oh man, just I've been out straight. But things are almost back to normal. And so starting today, fingers crossed, I get back on the bike and start producing Less Than 12 Parsecs once again. So please bear with me, and thank you so much for your patience. And thank you for the folks who reached out, who saw my posts. I didn't advertise this. I didn't post it everywhere, but I did put it in a few places. So thank you, everyone, for your kind thoughts and condolences, and I really appreciate that. Now, I feel like, since this is my first show back, I have to tell some stories about my mom related to Star Wars. It seems appropriate, right? I mean, I wouldn't be into Star Wars if it weren't for my mom. The first story I want to tell... Oh, and by the way, bear with me. This is going to be one of those bonus episodes. I'm going longer than 5-7 minutes today. I just know it, so bear with me. So anyway, the first story about Star Wars and my mom that I want to tell is one I have told on the show before. It was about how I first came to know Star Wars. Now, my mom was a young mom. She had her fingers on the pulse of pop culture as I was growing up, especially in the early years. And she knew about Star Wars before I did. She knew it was out there. She knew it was a thing in pop culture, and she knew I would love it. In fact, she came to me and said, hey, there's this new movie. You're going to love it. It's got spaceships. It's got robots. It's got sword fights, gun battles. I don't know exactly what she said, but she mentioned a lot of the things that would grab my attention at that age. And she was right, all that stuff I loved at that age, and it grabbed my attention. But, and now here's the weird thing about my mom. I was a little kid. She didn't tell me I was going to Star Wars. She asked me if I wanted to go to Star Wars. And she was going with her best friend, who happened to have 3 daughters. Now at that age, girls are yucky. Call me a chauvinist, but at that age, as a little kid, no, I didn't want to hang out with 3 girls for an afternoon. Even if it was the best movie ever, and even if there was free popcorn and soda and candy and whatnot. So I said no. And so my mom said, okay. And she went to the movies with her friends and their daughters and came back telling me how awesome it was and how much I would love it. And there you go. I just sort of brushed it off. It was summertime, but fall rolls around. School happens and all the kids are talking about this Star Wars thing. And I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. I had a vague idea of what Star Wars was at that point, but I didn't know the details, and so I felt left out. It was almost like my first taste of peer pressure in a way, my first taste of not being in the zeitgeist and feeling left out. So I went home and I begged and I begged and I begged. And yep, my mom took us to the movie theater to see Star Wars. And for our family, for someone to go and see a movie twice, that was an unheard of thing. Yeah, you hear all these stories of people in the 70s. Oh, I saw Star Wars in the theater 20 times, 50 times, 179 times. Yeah, that wasn't my family. I think in the long run, maybe I saw it 2 or 3 times in the theater. But even that was, even seeing it that first time after my mom had already seen it was an amazing thing for our family. And she was right. I loved it, and I still do. And, well, you know the rest. The other mom story I want to tell is something I've kind of vaguely hinted about before on the show. If you've been listening to Less Than 12 Parsecs, you know about once a month I like to try and find a vintage classic Star Wars action figure in the old Kenner line, because as a kid I didn't have that many Star Wars classic action figures. And so now, as an adult, I'm slowly building that collection I never had as a child. Why is this, you ask? And I've never told the story. I always say, oh, it's a little sad, and I leave it at that. So here's the story. Yeah, Star Wars rolls around, and I had pretty much all of the action figures. I did great. I had this one great Christmas where there was a box under the tree, and my grandmother and my mom probably helped her, filled it with all the action figures. It was awesome. And I had the X-Wing, and I had a TIE Fighter, and I had a Land Speeder, I had the Death Star playset. You know, it was pretty cool stuff. Well, by the time Empire rolls around, things are looking a little down for my family. My folks are starting to break apart. They're still married, but they're starting to break apart. And part of that process was, just a lack of money. I don't know if, I've never asked, I don't know if the money problem was the cause of the divorce or the or the other way around, but there you go. Times were tight. And then, of course, by the time Jedi rolls around, my mom was a single mom and, raising 2 sons, and things were even tighter. But around the Empire time, I really wanted the Millennium Falcon playset. I wanted it so bad. Friends had it. I wanted it. But at the time, it was actually it was one of the more expensive playsets. And like I said, the funds just weren't there. So what my mom did is she went out and bought the plastic model kit of the Millennium Falcon. Now, if you've seen the Kenner toy, it takes some liberties with the dimensions and the shape of the Falcon. The plastic kit was an exact replica. It's a model kit. You know what model kits are like. But at that age, I didn't have the dexterity, the skill, the ability to build that sort of model kit. So my mom built it for me, and she did a great job. The kit we had lights, and she depainted it. And yeah, it was pretty big, but yeah, you couldn't put your action figures in it. But I didn't care. I had a Falcon. And I had a Falcon that was different than all my friends' Falcons, but it was still, and that made it special to me. I remember it sitting on the bureau in my bedroom, right at the end of my bed, in place of honor, and I would play with it. It was, yes, it was a model, but for me it was a toy. And that was sort of its downfall. In time, parts broke off, and I think eventually it was smashed. Not on purpose, at least I hope not on purpose. I don't remember exactly, but, it went away. But I'll always remember my mom building that for me. And she said I could help. I knew I couldn't help. And then she did a great job on that, and that was pretty awesome. So anyway, those are 2 Star Wars stories involving my mom I just wanted to share. I'm sure I have plenty of others, but those are the ones that came to my mind first. Well, thank you for your patience. I am back. Less Than 12 Parsecs should be rolling out regular episodes 3 to 5 times a week, like the old days, like normal. The old days. It was 3 weeks ago. It feels like forever ago. And again, thank you to everyone for your kind thoughts and regards and condolences. I really appreciate it. Hey, do you have a story involving Star Wars and your mom? Something that, is a special childhood memory that you'll never forget involving Star Wars and your mom? I want to know. Share it with me. Really, please do. This would be good for me to hear. Email me at 12parsecs.podcast@gmail.com or connect with me on any of my social media accounts. All the links can be found on my website, 12parsecs.podcast.com. Thanks for listening. Utini!
You've been listening to Less Than 12 Parsecs, the fastest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy, part of the expanded Fandomverse network of shows. For links and show notes, visit our website, TwelveParsecsPodcast.com. Follow Less Than 12 Parsecs on Twitter at 12parpod, on Instagram at 12parsecsPodcast, on Tumblr at 12parsecsPodcast, and find us on Facebook as well. And please let us know what you think. Email us at 12parsecsPodcast@gmail.com.